Hello everybody, welcome back to the James Lawrence Allcott channel. Darwin Núñez, it has been revealed by the man, the myth. That is Fabrizio Romano, aka BBC Sport, aka Sky Sports News, aka the guy is a phenomena. So well done Fabrizio for having just in the know knowledge all the bloody time. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to dive into this transfer. We're going to have a look at how he plays, how that will suit Liverpool, how it will change Liverpool, really importantly, and how Liverpool will look to set up. I also have questions, okay? So stick around. You'll see on the thumbnail it says too good to be true. We will dive into that. But don't get angry with me, right? Transfers happen and transfers don't always work. And what I want to talk about, and I mean have a conversation about, is if he will suit Liverpool and how they will change. I do have questions. So stick around to the end of the video because I want to hear your thoughts on those questions in the comments down below. So who is Darwin Núñez? Darwin Núñez is a Uruguayan striker. He is 22 years old. He scored 31 goals in all competitions last year for Benfica. Did really, really well in the Champions League. We saw him play against Liverpool in the knockout stages as well, scoring such an amount of goals that it attracted all sorts of suitors. Man United were linked with him. I think West Ham, Arsenal at different times as well. But Liverpool have been able to get the deal done. Let's talk about that deal then, because it is a lot of money, let's be honest. Fabrizio, our guy, the main man himself, they have confirmed it now, Benfica, saying that it's 75 million euros plus add-ons, which would reach 100 million euros. Hell of a lot of money. I think what's funny here, and here's my first question for you, is am I a hypocrite? You know, whenever I do a video about Champions League or whatever, they get this Premier League bias gets chucked at me. And by the way, just to be clear, I'm a QPR fan. My team's not in the Premier League. But something like this, just odd. Am I having double standards here? Because when we sort of go on about the money for, you know, different players and different teams, often I kind of get up in arms about it. I mean, but is this a good deal? Because this is so much money, right? I guess that's the first question for you guys. Do you believe this is a good deal? Because I guess on the face of it, when we're playing Football Manager or when we're looking at these kind of things, and this is kind of the money that the big teams have, signing a 22-year-old until 2028, 6-year deal, yes, for 100 million if you get your add-ons, and the add-ons will mean that, you know, he needs to do something there. But the fact that he's 22 on a 6-year deal for a striker in 2022, and his wages, I would presume, aren't that high, especially for a 22-year-old, especially on a 6-year deal. I think there would be, obviously it will be high enough. But when you're thinking about Sadio Mane and the money that he wanted, I think, you know, he wanted like 400 grand a week because you're not spending the transfer fee on him. Bringing in someone who's a lot younger, not as good right now, I think that's fair to say, but that should be the case. This is, am I losing my mind here? I kind of feel like, from a money point of view, it's a lot of money, but it's an amount of money that will not put them in trouble because it will be recouped. Maybe the reason I'm saying that is because I like this lad. I really, really like it. That is so badly Photoshopped, by the way, and that's me saying that. Let's dive into him, the player, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So who is Darwin Núñez? Darwin Núñez is a Uruguayan striker, as I said. He's 22. He's a big boy, 6'2" frame, but has a real kind of mobility about him. He scored 31 goals in all competitions for Benfica last season, and that's why he was on everyone's radar. Rightly so. I was really, really impressed with him in the Champions League. Scored some great goals against Barcelona, Ajax, I think, as well, if I remember rightly, scoring the key one to knock them out. And kind of scoring those goals, I think, definitely started to kind of pique the interest of different people. And he's had a bit of a meteoric rise. He went from Almeria to Benfica for a record fee after one sort of, I mean, he kick-started in the second half of the season, but he was going from the second division of Portuguese football to then be the highest transfer fee for any player in Portuguese history. So there is it's an interesting one. there's a pedigree to this guy, but he has also kind of come from nothing. If you look at, there's a great video from Rabona TV, go check that out, where he talks about how he has made his way. And this is a big thing that I think Liverpool focus on. I'll tell you about this a little bit later on. Let's get on to his playing style, because in terms of his playing style, Núñez is pretty complete. He's a pretty complete striker from what we've seen so far. And what we've seen in that last season in particular. The season before with Benfica, it was more about assists. A lot of assists, I think it was 12. This year, really calmed down on the assists. But in terms of goals, as I say, 31 in all competitions. The guy's been on fire. And a nice mix as well. As a striker, he likes to sort of play on the shoulders of players. He's not, despite his big frame, not always, the hold-up man who wants to get on the ball. He's happy to work the channels and loves that left side of the channel, which is one of the problems possibly for Darwin Núñez in this Liverpool setup. As I say, he likes that left-hand side. He likes to cut in as well. That goal against Barcelona past Ter Stegen was a great example of that. He's also been much better in the air this year. That 6'2" frame, you want him to showcase that physicality. So 5 headers scored in the league as well is decent. So he's pretty well-rounded as a player. He really is. Pace, strength, agility, his main characteristics. That pace in behind is really, really exciting for them. And that's how Benfica play as well. So it has suited him pretty well. And going into the Premier League, one thing I do like about him is that 6'2" frame. Because with that, he's not going to get bullied like someone like Timo Werner has. So it's someone who's scored a lot of goals in a different division, come into the Premier League, and then struggle with the physicality. Darwin Núñez won't struggle with the physicality. So how will Liverpool use him? I think it's pretty obvious. This is the lineup that we would expect to see the most when you're bringing a striker like that. And also the situation with Sadio Mane would suggest that he will be out the door. And what we've seen as the season progressed, you got someone like Jota, who probably will intertwine with him. Firmino, it'll be interesting to see if he's still a player come the start of next season. All 3 players actually offer very different things, actually. But he's going to play through the middle. And if you're going to spend that kind of money, 100 mil, 75 mil up front, you're going to play him, right? And I expect him to play through the middle, at least on paper. But that's where it becomes a little bit different, because in reality, he does love to drift over to that left-hand side, working between the right fullback, if it's a back 4, and the right-sided centre-back. Also loves to run in behind as well, which is interesting. And also maybe an element that will be difficult for him. And this is the big thing when it comes to Núñez, is that I can talk about how he has played, and we're going to, but he will have to change. And Luis Diaz came into this side. We spoke about how he would play and how it would be very different to Mane. And actually, he tweaked his game a little bit as well. He was a little bit more direct. He stayed out wide that little bit more. He was happy to make those diagonal runs like Mane had done as well. So Núñez will have to utilise the strengths that he has, which, as I've spoken about, is being that kind of advanced forward, being someone who likes to run in behind, but also someone that should hopefully drag out some centre-backs like he did for Benfica into wide, uncomfortable positions. To the tactics board, then back to me. To the tactic, to me. To the me. To the tactic, and then briefly back to me. So, the thing with Núñez, and I'll show you this now, heat map. To this heat map, Núñez seems to target that left channel. And he has 2 clear runs, right? The first of all, as you can see, is sort of spinning that right-sided centre-back, working that left channel. Get to the byline, maybe get the cross in, maybe get your shot off. The second one is that dart across the front post. Those are the 2 ways that he wants to play. So that could be fine, but it's going to be different. It's going to be a little bit different for them. The problem that this could create is the possibility that it could isolate Salah. And this could be a good thing or a bad thing. To the tactics board once more. So, look, there's a little football. This is how they look like they would move. And in terms of that movement, as you can see, those are the 2 that we're spanning here. The problem that I see here is that the middle of the pitch may become somewhat isolated. That said, this is something that, to be honest, Liverpool have been doing for quite some time, is sort of focusing down these sides more so than having a number 10. But I just wonder if they will look to do something differently, because And look, this is Liverpool. Liverpool play 60 games a season. So what will be different is the fact that there might be games where Núñez comes out, and the difference between Mane and some of these other players is Mane wants to play every single game. What you do have with someone like a 22-year-old kid is the fact that he will be on the bench and be like, oh, okay, I'm on the bench. Which actually might give Firmino a bit more kind of excitement and value as it's started to wane over the last season or so. And the same for Jota as well, because Jota's had a really good season. You don't want to lose that, right? You want to keep everyone excited. So what could happen is that, you have those two main men now, but Jota comes in and plays his role, which is a bit more of a round-daughter at times, isn't it? There are actually some similarities with Núñez and Jota. And then the same with Firmino as well, as I said. And then with Firmino, you play a lot deeper, and he's almost that false nine. Well, he is that false nine, and it helps the rest of the team. Some of the questions that I have, answer these for me. Let's get rid of these two. Is there an evolution that's about to occur here? Because Núñez, his hold-up play is not really what he's about. It's about the spins. We've spoken about that. So this area here, for me, I just wonder how that's going to be used. We spoke about Diaz when he came through the door, that actually he likes to do that. He likes to play into these areas of the pitch. But he played in a different way because obviously he had been asked to do that. In terms of the dribbling of Núñez playing in those areas, we just don't know how effective he is in the tight spaces because he's been playing for Benfica and play a counter-attacking style, and he has roughly 2 successful dribbles per 90 across all competitions, which means you might think that he's a sort of technical dribbler, but I think that's down to the sort of style of play that Benfica play. So will Núñez struggle a little bit against teams that play that very severe, narrow, low block? That could be a problem for Núñez. But it's about development, isn't it? That's the thing that he's going to have to deal with. Salah, Alexander-Arnold and Henderson. Is there something here as well? Will Salah's role change? Because if Núñez is staying on this left-hand side, Diaz is staying on this left-hand side, is there an attempt here to make a bit more space for the likes of Alexander-Arnold, Salah and Henderson, or whoever might play there, Keita? Or are they going to get a little bit isolated on that other side? I think there's 2 ways of looking at this. And there's another player that we haven't spoken about who could become important for Liverpool moving forward. And I'm not saying it's the end of Henderson, but I'm intrigued to see what happens with the likes of Elliott and actually Carvalho possibly as well. He's a really, really exciting talent. But Elliott, he often got into these little areas of the pitch. And if Núñez isn't interested in that, there could be games where he stays on the final man, on the shoulder, looking to get him behind. You've got that quality long balls from the likes of Van Dijk, of course. The incredible vision from the likes of Thiago. So he does look to stretch it. And then that space is maybe used more by Elliott. Maybe it's one where, you mix it around and Henderson makes that move over to the right-hand side and Alexander-Arnold's getting even more involved in these central areas. I think Klopp's made a really interesting move here. And I think overall it could see a change. Because I feel like someone like Elliott could be so much more important to this team this season because there is that big gap in that zone 14 area that needs to be exploited by Liverpool. Too good to be true. Let's talk about that. Because 31 goals is pretty outrageous. But it came from an XG of only 19.3. 31 goals. This is according to Y-Scout. He also averaged a conversion rate of 33%, which is exceptional. And this is the thing, you can spin this both ways. There's a broad feeling generally that you can't outrun XG a little bit. It will catch up with you sooner or later. I mean, the best, the Benzemas, the Salahs, the Kanes, the Sons, they consistently outdo their XG. But 31 goals from an XG of 19.3 is it's too hot. And if it's too hot and that drags him down a little bit, and he then steps into the Premier League, that's going to be really tricky for him, because confidence breeds, quality breeds goals. So again, you can spin this 2 ways. You can go, well, hang on a minute, he's a 22-year-old who's been exceptional when you look at the stats. Like, chill. And I think that's fair too. I really think this could go both ways. The money side of it, again, I think is really interesting. Another question for me, because I just keep seeing Timo Werner, Romelu Lukaku. And I think that, the big thing with that is pressure, right? And pressure at a club like Chelsea is very, very different, I think, to the pressure and the feeling at Liverpool a lot of the time. But there's definitely going to be some growing pains here. Is it a risk here, guys? How much should he have cost up front? 75 mil, is that fine? Or is this a guy who actually should be costing 30, 40 million for the amount of games that he's played? What is the right amount of money for him? I think they've gone with an astute move here, where they've gone, we're going to lose Mane. We're probably going to get a bit of money for Mane though as well. We would have to reinvest that at some point. And we've got a guy who looks like he's going to be on 115k a week, as opposed to someone who's going to be on 400. Broadly speaking, I think there will be growing pains as well, because you can put your money on Mane to score goals every single season. And when we talk about the next evolution of Liverpool as well, this signing feels really like, okay, right, we're moving into a new era now, because Firmino is not a starter anymore. Salah is still there, but Mane leaving. And when it comes to this team, in terms of stalwarts, Salah, Mane play. And if Salah and Mane aren't playing, they're fuming. So they really are a huge part, probably the strongest part of the identity of this Liverpool side. And goals win games, right? So someone coming in has to be done at some point, right? But I do think it is savvy market acumen, because there are only so many number 9s like this, and the bulk of the other ones cost too much. And a 22-year-old over 6 years, that means he's 28. 28, he's still got huge sell-on value if you want to sell him. You know, a bit like with Salah, if Real Madrid want to go and buy these guys, it's going to cost them so much money. So they put themselves in a really, really strong position here. So that's why I keep coming back to it. Next question for me then, Darwin Núñez comes in. How much of a loss is Mane? And not just from, the goals, and you're looking to swap this cog with that cog, then you've got the same amount of goals because he scored 31 over here. Football doesn't work like that. We know that, right? So how long is it going to take for Liverpool to get to the same level of fluency and it's that level of fluency that I think, despite having a interchanging squad at times, that fluency allowed them to do what they did last year in terms of playing the amount of games that they played and continuing to win so many of those games. I don't think Darwin Núñez will be the fall guy, because I think, look, he's here for 6 years. You've spent a decent amount of money on it, but it does get stretched out. But you are taking out Mane from the equation, and that is going to change Liverpool massively. And so I'm intrigued to know how you guys feel about just the moving forward of Liverpool as much as anything else, to be honest. My final question, before I give you my final thoughts on if I think this will work or not. Could this be a Cristiano Ronaldo at Man United situation? Now, Cristiano Ronaldo scored a lot of goals. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is this one where, yes, Liverpool wanted to be savvy and get a youngster and get him at the right time, but is it one of those where they didn't want to pass it up? They didn't want to let Man United go and get this guy and then 4 years down the line go, what were we doing? Why didn't we get him when we were the powerhouse in comparison to Man United because of how dominant they were on the pitch at that moment in time? Do you think that is something that could happen here with Darwin Núñez? Because again, these are all the questions. When someone gets through the door, there are only so many answers because we don't know if it's going to work out just yet. Here's what I think. I think this will work out, but I think it will take a second. And I think, actually, do you know who's really important in terms of Darwin Núñez doing well long-term at Liverpool? It's actually Diogo Jota. Now, Diogo Jota had the time to acclimatise, understand what was going on at Liverpool, because Firmino was doing, to be honest, it was in a season where they struggled, but Firmino was there, Mane was there, Salah was there. I think for someone like Darwin Núñez, Jota actually maybe even starting the season and playing a decent amount of games will allow Núñez to kind of get his feet under the table a little bit and not feel that outrageous pressure. Here's the thing I like the most about the profiles of Liverpool players. Loz said this to me, and I thought this is really spot on, actually. And they've done it again here. Is you've got a guy here, and they seem to do this numerous times. There's lots of players that have had a journey before they get to Liverpool. So, okay, Henderson, put him to the side because he was already there. Robertson had made his way to Liverpool. Wasn't a Ruben Loftus-Cheek who'd had the pedigree, who'd been at Chelsea all those years. And it's often the profile of the player. If you look at someone like Darwin Núñez, who's gone from a couple of teams into the second division of the Portuguese league, then moving into the top division. Sadio Mane coming from Southampton. Obviously, you had to move to Southampton, lower league team. Van Dijk, like all the talent is there. But time and again, these are players that come from a smaller club, right? And so with that in mind, the other thing that they do a lot of the time is they pick up players from South America. And these are often, very family-oriented players. These are players that often have religion sewn into their lives. And Salah is another great example of a player that kind of had to make his way and is brave enough to go out to these different places and carve out their career. And I think that's such an important personality trait for top quality players. And in particular, the profile that Liverpool put forward. They want those guys who are family men, who care about their career, who've been brave enough to go and play in odd divisions or go and play in teams that aren't just, it's not put on a plate for you. That's what I really, really like about Darwin Núñez. He's another example of that. And someone who's come from Uruguay. His brother stayed back when he had to go, and then he had to deal with that pressure of that. But that pressure also leads to desire and drive. And I think it's another... It'd be very, very dangerous for you to suggest that Liverpool have got this wrong. What I would say is that there will be growing pains. Because losing someone like Sadio Mane is huge. Truly the end of an era, losing someone like Sadio Mane from Liverpool. So it will take a second. Will there be an element of a drop-off? Quite possibly. But overall, when things like that have to happen, to get a 22-year-old on a 6-year deal, yes, he's cost a decent amount, but this is the same thing that Alex Ferguson used to do. He'd go and get the best 22-year-olds that he could. And you know that you've got 6 years out of them, and then you can still sell them when they're 28. It's very, very simple. It's basic. And when that happens, you pay a premium. But overall, I think this ticks a lot of the boxes of what Liverpool will need. The intricacies and the maturity of him will be important as well. And again, final thing, tactically, yes, there is a feeling that he wants this left-hand side, but I'll call it now. I really wouldn't be surprised if, first of all, he scores a lot of goals at the back post from Alexander-Arnold putting those crosses in. But secondly, there's a little... Do you remember Divock Origi doing the little backboard for Salah at times? I wonder, with the physicality of Núñez, his hold-up play, and this is a professional footballer. He can do a simple layoff. I think there might be times where they look to stretch the play. Núñez makes his way over and provides this little backboard for Salah at times to allow him to do what he wants to do. As I said, several questions from me. Let me know your answers in the comments down below. This is a conversation. This is the place for the silent majority, not the loud, shouty lot. The people that have a nice conversation. We're going to do this with loads of players when they make those signings, and we'll have a look at how they will set up. We're also going to be having a look at how teams can rebuild and what they can do when it comes to this transfer window. Lots coming up this summer on the James Lawrence Allcott channel. So if you could subscribe, that'd be lovely. If you could hit the like button, that'd be great. And as I said, get involved in the comments down below. I'll see you on the next one.